Greetings. Thank you for joining us today. So what will we learn today? Well, we're going to cover 4 topics today. First, we're going to talk about how to identify which controller version you have and which software version you have in your controller. Then we're going to spend some time talking about the new 4-pump operation with one controller, and also talk about RS-485 Modbus. And then we'll finish up by talking about how to update your controller with this new software. My name is Mark Hansen, and I'm the Senior Product Applications Engineer here at Teledyne Isco for the syringe pumps, and I've been with Isco for over 25 years. As you know, Teledyne Isco syringe pumps are the best to use when accuracy and reliability are critical and you can't afford less than the best. And they are used in many applications. Some of the typical ones are listed here: ferns of injection molding and extrusion, catalysis and reaction feeding, core flooding, carbon sequestration, and work in biomass or biofuels, for supercritical fluid extraction, plastics production, and cleaning. So on to today's topics. First thing we're going to talk about is the controller version identification. Starting about the end of last year, we started shipping a new controller version. This version of the controller added hardware to support new features down the road and also increased the programming space to allow us to add additional functionality to the controls. Initial changes that we released with this controller were some improved diagnostic and testing functions, a menu on-off control of pressure deadband in constant pressure, and a dispense mode, which had been optional, became standard in this software. And now we've just released some additional features for the pump. To identify your controller, there are 2 controller versions out there. One we call the legacy controller, and it's the one that we shipped for many years, and it has an LCD display. The second one, the new current controller, also has an LCD display, but it's backlit, so it's kind of bluish in color. So it's pretty easy to identify the controller that way. The other change that we did was to add the dispense mode or dispense button in place of the help key. So you can tell if you have a current controller if, 1, the display is backlit, as shown here, and 2, that you do have the key that's marked DISP at the bottom. Now, to check the software version in the controller, you use the menu, A for more, and then 2 for status, which will bring up the screen you see here. And up in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see the revision number. And this should be essentially like 1.0 something. And to have the latest features, you have to have 1.09. So if this is anything less, like shown here, it's 1.07, you would need to upgrade the software in your controller before you would have these new features. So to review this process, you can go to our website, www.isco.com, and /SP app notes would get you right to the page where you can find this app note. It's technical bulletin number 28 that describes in detail how to identify your controller. Next, we want to talk about the new 4-pump operation of the pump system. The advantage of having this is you get a single point of control for up to 4 pumps. You can have both continuous delivery and continuous receive modes now from a single controller. You can also add up to 4 reagents or 2 continuously now from 1 controller. And this is just a software update or change for the new controllers. So how do we connect this 4th pump? Well, if you look at the picture here, you can see the back panel of the controller. And there is now, always has been actually, a 4th connector up at the top marked auxiliary. And this is where you connect the 4th pump. Also on the new controller, you can see there are digital input for this pump number 4 to allow it to run and stop, and also an analog input that's been added to allow analog control of the flow rate or pressure. So what kinds of modes can you operate the pump in now? Well, you can operate all 4 pumps independently, or you can set up 2 continuous flow systems, or you could have 1 continuous flow system and still have 2 independent pumps, or you can even have 1 continuous flow system with modifier and 1 independent pump. So let's look at these different configurations a little more closely. Here we see how 4 separate independent pumps would be connected. Here in this illustration, you can see 2 continuous flow systems with air valves. Here's 1 continuous flow system shown with 2 independent pumps. Now there are a few limitations of what you can do with this software. One is if you're running single pump gradient mode, this is only available for a single pump connected to the A connector. Also, concentration gradients are only available for 2 pumps connected to A and B. Also, electric valves are not supported with 4-pump configuration. So let's take a little more look at how the menus and how the programming of the pump is controlled. First of all, if you use the menu and number 2 keys, you can get to a display that shows you the 4 different pumps. And now with the 4th pump added, you'll see to the right-hand side of this is it now says pump D is now listed. And this particular case, it's in flow mode, flow programming. But you can then use the A, B, C, and D soft keys then to go to a specific pump to enter the parameters for it. For example, the A key will take you to the entering parameters for the pump connected to A, like the flow rate or pressure, and so on, just like before. The only real addition here is the fact that you now have the 4th pump on the right side of the screen. Another change that occurs if you have 1 to 3 pumps connected. In the past, you've always seen that the D soft key was labeled to stop all pumps. But with 4 pumps connected, of course, now you need the ability to stop just the D pump or the 4th pump. So that has replaced that. So if you do want to stop all pumps, you still have the option, as you always did, just to push the stop key a second time. So if you want to stop all 4 pumps, you simply push stop, stop. If you want to stop a specific pump, you push stop, and then A, B, C, or D for the particular pump you wish to stop. Another change is on some menus in the past, or if you don't have 4 pumps connected, you'll see the word previous that lets you go back a menu or back a level on the D key. And of course now if you need that D pump to show up, it will replace that. So on menus where that key was replaced, you need to use either the clear entry or the menu key shown here. And pressing those will actually perform the same function as the previous key did before. Another change is in the continuous flow menu. If you go into the menu and press A for more, you'll get the choice of number 4, which is the multi-pump menu. Submenu, you press 4 then, and instead of going as you would in the previously to the bottom left screen that shows the different types of continuous flow available, you would instead bring up this intermediate screen that lets you pick which pump pair you wish to talk to or program. If you push the 1, you'll be programming pumps A and B. If you use the number 2, you'll program pumps C and D. Also, you'll notice here that for the second pair, you're limited in a couple modes that you cannot use with the second pair of pumps. These are the modifier and the continuous modifier modes are not available for the second pair. When you have 2 continuous flow systems, you'll get a new option on this menu that shows the ability to run or stop all 4 pumps simultaneously. If you turn this feature on by using the number 3 key here, then whenever you push the run and stop keys, you'll actually control all 4 pumps together. Another small change is with the total volume. To reset the total volume now, you go to Menu More and pick the number 5 to say you want to work with the total volume reset. And now you'll bring up the same menu that lets you pick whether you want to talk to the AB pump pair or the CD pump pair, or if you want to reset the volume for both sets at the same time. When you've selected what you want, like for example here on the right we show number 1 that you're going to reset the volume for the AB pumps, then you simply push the store key to finish and actually reset the pumps. Another option that's available now is to specify whether you have an inlet check valve on your continuous flow system. You get at this by going from Menu, More, choosing the multi-pump menu, choosing pump set, in this case A and B, and then going to Other Options, which is number 6. Then you can pick whether you want to turn on or off this fact that you have a check valve. And the NCV here stands for no check valve. So you're telling it whether you have this check valve or not. This is useful if you're working with high viscosity fluids, or the pump will lower the pressure before starting your refill. So in summary, a single controller can now operate up to 4 pumps, allowing the following new pump configurations. 4 independent pumps, or 2 continuous flow systems, or 1 continuous flow system and 2 independent pumps, or a continuous flow with modifier and 1 independent pump. Again, this is all contained in Technical Bulletin 26, which you can find in our website, on our website. Next, we want to talk about RS-485 Modbus. This is a new interface that we've put in the controller to allow our industrial pump customers an easier way to remotely control syringe pumps. Modbus is a serial communications protocol commonly used to communicate between these PLCs, or programmable logic controllers, and the equipment they control. The RS-485 is the electrical interface often used to send and receive serial communications. So what are the advantages of this? Well, RS-485 Modbus, RS-485 itself is more noise tolerant and works over greater distances than RS-232. Also, Modbus is an industry standard, so there's a reduced learning curve. And it also removes the requirement to learn DASNet protocol to control the pumps via the serial port. So how do we configure this? Well, we go to Menu, A, using the More key then 3 times to go down to the 4th level of menus, and pick number 1 there, which is Modbus Options. Under this, you get the same sort of serial options that you might see similar to RS-232, although in this case there are a couple extra ones. Normally, you don't need to worry too much about this. You just match them to whatever you've programmed in the PLC controller. The one here you may not be familiar with from if you've used serial communications on RS-232 before is the word order, which in terms of sending the flow rates or pressures just tells how it's going to send those, whether it's going to send them in high order bytes or low order bytes, or the larger part of the number first or the smaller part. So. But again, then there's one other parameter, the character time, because we are using RTU. We need to specify this timing. Again, the default is typically good enough, but if you do have set it differently on your controller, then you would just match that here. Next, how do you connect up RS-485? Well, there are a couple different schemes for this. We're using a scheme called 2-wire plus ground. In this case, you have 2 signals, a data plus and a data minus signal, and a ground connection. We do recommend that you do hook up the ground. Sometimes you can get away without that, but for best practices, we do think you should use that 3rd wire. If you want, you can make up a test cable to connect to your PC USB port. We list a DigiKey part here that you can buy that you can then wire on the connector. We're using pins 18, 11, and 7 from the 25-pin connector on the back of the controller that normally is used for the RS-232 to bring out the RS-485 signals. One can also use various test programs you can find on the internet if you want to simulate your PLC controller to talk to the pump. So what types of data do we use? Well, in Modbus, there are 2 types of data that we are using. One, the first is called coils, and these are 1-bit on-off flags that are used to display settings or enable functions. And the second type of data we're using are registers, and these contain floating point numbers in a IEEE standard format. So which commands do we support? Well, there are several of the Modbus commands that we do support in our software. Basically, they are read and write commands to read and write these registers. And then also, we list here the exception codes that we may send back. So we have defined about approximately 116 of these on-off or coils for the pump. And these are functions like run, stop, refilling or not refilling, what mode the pump is in, and various things. So for example, if we wanted to turn a pump or run a pump, all we have to do is write a on condition or a 1 to register number 2, and that will start pump B running. Also, we've defined 85 values that are stored in registers. These are things like pressure set points, flow rate set points, refill rates, etc. for the pumps. And these are all read from registers starting at 40,001. For example, here, if I want to set a flow rate for pump A, I can write to registers 40012 and 40013 to set the flow rate. So then customer programming in the PLC controls the reading and writing of data to these coils and registers, which then remotely monitors and controls the various pump functions. And you can always read and write these registers to control the pump's operation. Now, if you want to lock out all but the stop key on the pump, you can also put the pump and using one of the coils to set it in remote mode, and that will then lock out all of the keys on the keyboard except the stop key. So in summary, RS-485 Modbus RTU provides remote pump control and monitoring for users that have PLCs, and it's now built into the standard software of the controller. RS-232 DASnet is still available and still built in also as standard. So to review this, you can see Technical Bulletin 27 on our website. So the last thing I wanted to cover today was to talk some about how to update the controller software. So you have a new controller you've discovered, but it doesn't have the right software. How do we get it updated? Well, currently, of course, we're shipping controllers with version 1.09, and this does include all the new features. If your software version is less than that, such as 1.08 or lower, then you can use this following procedure here to update the firmware in the controller. So again, first thing probably the best to do is to go in and check and see what version you actually do have. And to remind you of that, remember you use the menu, more, the A, soft key, and number 2 for status to check the version of your software. Again, it must be 1.09 or greater. If it reads something like demo 79 or custom 100 and something, then those are still the old controller and those can't be updated. It must be in this format. Another check to make sure you do have a new controller that can be updated. So what do we need to do this? Well, we'll need, of course, an operating pump with the controller, the computer with a serial port, a serial cable, a 9 to 25 pin modem cable, and then the update program with the new code in it. So if you want to buy the cable from us, it is a standard modem cable, but it is available from Teledyne Isco. It's part number shown here. Or you can use your own cable, and in the middle here you can see what connections are important in that cable. There are only 4. The one that's sometimes missing in a cable, the one you probably really want to check for, is to make sure this clear to send, this pin 8 and 5 are connected in your cable. And of course, it just connects to the RS-232 connector on the back of the pump controller. So how do we do this? Well, first thing we want to do is turn off the pump A modules switch, but we want to turn on the controller switch. Then we hold down the dispense key while we turn on the pump's power switch. And after 3 seconds, we release the dispense key. The display at this point should be blank. If it's not, then you need to go back and repeat these 3 steps because it isn't in the right mode to be programmed. Now, the update file you will receive will probably be a .zip file. And we'll assume for now that you've saved this onto your desktop. So you right-click on this file, and then you select Extract All from the menu that appears. Then you click the Extract button down in the lower corner to extract the file. At this point, you should see the screen at the bottom, where you then can click on this Download-4th Gen to start the program to actually transfer the program to your controller. At this point, then, this screen that you see here at the top should show up, and you click on the Download button to start the download. And then as it progresses, you can see here the other screens that kind of show as it's done. And when it's finished, it will give you a message that is completed. And you just click on the Exit button then to exit the update program. Then you would turn the pump off. And then the next step we want to do is we want to clear out the memory in the controller for the new software. So we hold down the clear entry key while we turn the pump back on. Then after about 3 seconds, we release the clear entry. The controller should say it's initializing. Then the next step is to go to the system menu by pushing Menu and number 5, System Reset, and then A to continue. This will reset all the different parameters in the controller back to the factory settings. And then we also should go through and zero the pressure to all the pumps by using the zero pressure function. The next thing you need to do is run all the pumps to a limit, either empty or full, so this will correct the volume reading on the controller. So to finish then, the last thing you should probably do is go back and check the status to make sure that the update has been accomplished by using the menu A, More, and 2 status keys. And the version now should read 1.09 or greater in the upper right. If it doesn't, simply turn the power off and assume you're sure that you have all your kicks and cables hooked up correctly, and then start over with the procedure and try it again. This all is covered again in our technical bulletin, number TB09, that you can find on our website. So, in conclusion, the controller can now operate up to 4 independent or 2 continuous flow systems. RS-485 Modbus RTU communication is now standard in addition to the RS-232C. As always, you can use our website to keep updated on the latest information, and you can go to www.isco.com/sp to get right to the syringe pump section. And our syringe pumps, as always, can be custom fit to many applications. If you can't find the answer, call or email us and with your special requirements, and we'll be glad to help. Again, our apps note and applications library can be found at this web address. And the 4 technical bulletins that we did talk about today are TB28, the syringe pump controller versions, TB26, the 4-pump operation, TB27, the Modbus RTU, and TB09, flash memory upgrading for your controller. For further information, you can contact either myself or Dale Clay at the email addresses or phone numbers listed here. Thank you very much for attending today. If you do think of questions, please be sure to email me or phone, and we'll be happy to discuss the pumps. Thank you again for coming.